Come on, y'all. We got to talk about doubles. Come on. I'm going to do it every single time. I'm going to talk about them every single chance that I get on this podcast because I love the Chicago Bulls. Now, when they lose, I'm also going to be fair. I'm going to be fair. They've only lost once so far, and it was in back to backs. It was in a back to back against the New York Knicks, and they split 1-1. Probably should have expected that they were going to lose one of the two. It's tough to beat a team twice. You also had to beat New York. That loss was having to beat New York in New York, so that's always tough. Bulls get the dub over the Philadelphia 76ers off of a Nikola Vucevic bucket at the end. Big knockdown bucket. Josh Giddey became the first Bulls player to have back to back triple doubles since Michael Jordan in 1989. So you get a game winning 3-point shot from your big man who's having himself a year. He's having himself a year. You claw back from being down 24 points to get the dub. You get a historic triple double finish for Josh Giddey. You get a double double from Vucevic, 19 and 10 in this game. And most importantly, they're 6-1. Most importantly, this team is 6-1. This Chicago Bulls team to me is very exciting to watch. They've been so intrigued with the way that they've been able to play basketball this season. I talked about it a lot on the last podcast where I discussed the Bulls, that I think that the way they're playing as an up-tempo team is something that's going to continue to work for them all year long because they're just maximizing the fact that they can play with so much speed. They're tied for ninth in pace of play, third in field goal percentage, fifth in 3-point attempts and 3-point percentage. They are sixth in free throw percentage. Excuse me. They are making up for this fact. They're making up for the fact that they're not a very big basketball team. They're not a big basketball team, but they are a versatile basketball team. Their small ball lineups are very effective in terms of what they've been able to do. They lead the league in effective field goal percentage. They're top three in true shooting, and they barely turn the ball over. They're top 10 in terms of protecting the basketball. The Chicago Bulls, to me, are going to be a team that, despite what Bulls fans' expectations were coming into the season, they're going to be a team that not only surprises a lot of people this year throughout the rest of the season, because I think this is not sustainable in the sense that they're going to be a top team in the Eastern Conference. They're not. I don't think when it's all said and done, the Bulls are going to finish as a top three seed. But this is a Bulls team that's starting to shape out their season again very early in the year. Only 7 games for the Chicago Bulls, but this is a team that seems like they're about to shape their season very similar to the Detroit Pistons of last year, where all they need is a little bit of competency and a real understanding of what their play style is, and all of a sudden they go from a team that's bottom of the barrel to a team that now is in top four to top six discussions in the Eastern Conference. And this is a team that their identity is to play fast, to shoot 100 threes a night, it feels like, up tempo, moving the ball, playing with real facilitation, and going as Josh Giddey goes. I think Josh Giddey having such a breakout year this season is a big, big part of why they've been able to be so special this season, because they've put themselves in position to kind of take on his best traits, which is he's a jumbo ball handler who's a good ball mover. This season, he's improved significantly as a 3-point shooter, 41% from beyond the arc. He's shooting 49.6% from the field, 41.9 from three, 75% from the free throw line, averaging 23, 9, and 10. First of all, Josh Giddey has to be in the MVP conversation somewhere. I believe when I was looking at Sports References MVP tracker of the top 10, I believe that Josh Giddey was 8 and Nikola Vucevic was 10. The dude's averaging nearly a triple double. If anybody else is doing that, they're having the conversation of being an MVP candidate. Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic are already two guys that are a great representation of that. And the Bulls with Josh Giddey have a better record than both of those teams, and he's doing so as like the lead guy the lead catalyst for them being so good this early in the season. The Bulls continue to impress me. They're able to do it in a lot of different ways. They've been able to do it in blowout fashion. This is a game where they've been able to really close. They've had multiple games where they've come back from double digit deficits in order to come out with the victory. This team is super resilient. I love the fact that Matas Buzelis, even when he's not super effective as an offensive player, he's starting to have much more of an impact on the defensive end, making himself very useful regardless of whether it's his night offensively or not. I think that was a lot of what you saw in this game against Philly, where rough shooting night, 4 of 11, only 10 points and 5 rebounds, but one steal, 2 blocks, didn't turn over the ball over too much, and was a +9, which was the best plus minus of anybody on the Chicago Bulls the other night. Just somebody who's really effective in his minutes, where he doesn't allow himself to get too high, he doesn't allow himself to get too low, but he allows himself to, he makes sure he's effective on the floor and has some kind of real impact on the floor, regardless of which side of the ball it is. So, not gonna go into a overly deep glaze session of the Chicago Bulls after this game, but continuously going to be praising the Chicago Bulls when they do well, because this is a Bulls team that people have questioned their competence. Shoot, I've questioned their competence as a franchise. The decisions they've made, the decisions they haven't made. There's a lot of things that would make you question and will make you question the Chicago Bulls. But one thing I can say about this season is it seems they finally found their identity, and their identity is to be a 7 seconds or less type offense. They play with pace. They shoot a ton. They move the ball at a high rate. They're a team that I think is going to be really fun all year long. The Chicago Bulls, to me, I wouldn't be surprised, are going to be like a top 5 team as far as, fast break highlights, um perform like game winning performances. Like, this is a Chicago Bulls team that I think is gonna have to do it in a multitude of different ways. This is not the Oklahoma City Thunder we talked about earlier in the podcast, where they are dominating folks on a night to night basis, and then you have those 1 or 2 games to start the season off where they had to remind people that when a game gets close, they still can finish games off too. I think the Chicago Bulls team is gonna have to do it in a multitude of different ways, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's more games like this where you're down by 15, 20 points and Chicago Bulls climb back into it, because it's a team that still, even with what they're doing this year, is trying to figure out like what is their go-to thing that makes them dangerous. I think right now it's just the fact that they move the ball. The fact that they are one of the top teams in assists this year, the fact that they play together so much, I think that's a big help to it. But I would also say the biggest X factor is just that Kobe White hasn't played yet. And that means there's another level that this team can get to once Kobe White is healthy. But again, I think I've said that on a million different episodes of this podcast, because I talked about the Bulls so much already to kick off the year, and deservedly so. Deservedly so. This podcast is very much dedicated a lot to discussing storylines that are not being brought up in the national media on a regular basis. Teams like the Thunder, despite being the reigning champions, don't get a lot of screen time. Scotty Barnes and Devin Booker not going to get talked about a lot this season, with the fact that their teams have pretty low expectations in terms of making the playoffs. And the Bulls, a lot of people believe that the Bulls' start to the season is a facade. And I don't blame people for feeling that way, because this is a team that is doing it in a very unconventional way, right? They don't have anybody that you would call like a premier superstar. Josh Giddey's just having a really, really amazing start to the season, but there's nobody on the team that you would call like a premier top 10, top 15 player in the league right now. And yet here they are, looking like one of the best teams in basketball so far. So that's what this podcast is all built about. Not just this episode, but this podcast in general. Routine Jumper is about highlighting all 30 teams over the course of an 82-game regular season and the postseason. We are not focusing just on the biggest storylines in the NBA. The Bulls should be a bigger storyline. They will be the biggest storyline on a podcast like this one, especially when your boy's a Bull fan. But with